the three individuals here have a wealth of experience. They come from different views on it, and I'll let them discuss that. But we have our friend Arthur Sidney. He was formerly with Forbes Tate. That's how we met you. You were a senior consultant there. But now he went out on his own. He is the founder of the Sidney Group. So we're happy to have him here. He is an expert. He's been talking about AI. That's what some of your conversations around the world have been, right? Okay. Biff Wayne Clark. He is the managing partner of Coefficient Technologies. He's the boss. And we had him 2 years ago, I think it was, maybe 3. And just a wealth of knowledge. He's going to come at it from a view that you probably haven't heard of. And then, of course, Janelle Leonard, my friend, she has been so helpful in teaching me things about AI and resources and where to go for. There's a free training that she talks about, and she is an expert. She's the director of leadership development for inclusion. So with that, I'm going to take a seat, and then I will ask each of them to, just go down and say, hey, I'm Biff, and just a few minutes. Don't go into your presentation, but just a few minutes about why you're here and what we're trying to accomplish with this panel.
Well, good morning, everyone. Again, I am Biff Clark. I am a managing partner, co-owner, and founder of a company by the name of Coefficient Technologies. We have been around 20 years, started in the D.C. area. What's important about the business and services that we provide is we are focused on IT management, services, and cybersecurity. And across that chasm, you see a lot of different opportunities to help companies build their wealth, build their opportunities, make their impact, and employ more people, which impacts their communities and impacts the economy. So we enjoy being in that role. But most importantly, we feel like we have an opportunity to grow and help other people understand that there is a space for them in this particular IT space.
Thank you, Biff. Sorry about that.
Right. Is it still morning? Good morning, everybody. So I'm Janelle Leonard, and I come to this space from different angles in that one of my roles was assistant superintendent for technology in DC Public Schools. And in another role, I was the state director for instructional technology for Texas. And so then I moved to the Department of Ed. So I have so many different versions of how AI will play out in the workplace and the things that we need to be very mindful of as we move into this space. Is that enough that I can? Yes. So anyway, my presence here is really to help explore all of these possibilities in the different areas.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Arthur Sidney, very pleased to be here. I am an attorney, strategist, former chief of staff on the Hill, international trade attorney, did some competition policy back in the day, and so worked for tech associations, some of the largest tech associations in the country, as well as Forbes Tate. And so I come at not just AI, but technology generally from a unique perspective, and don't want to stoke the fear-mongering, but want to look at the potential opportunities. AI is here. It is scaling quickly. It's been here before, by the way. It's not a new phenomenon. It's been around for 60-plus years, almost like the consumer welfare standard. So none of this stuff is new, and so I want to talk about ways that we can benefit from it. There will be job displacement. There are some negative aspects to it, but I think getting in on the incipient side, the early side, as things start to scale, could put us in a better stead. And the last thing I'll say, give it back to you, is that what I'm hearing, one of the through threads through all of these discussions is, even on the last panel about competition policy, really what we're talking about is about power and authority. And that's no different even in the AI space. And I think one of the questions we want to develop today is, how do we challenge that power and sort of get back some of that authority? With that, I'm interested for a very great discussion, and give the microphone back to Brady.
Well, you can hold on to that. I will actually start with you, Arthur, if you don't mind. So the first question I have is, it's entry-level crisis. Who pays for a generation without on-ramps? And this is very serious. We're about to replace a lot of entry-level people that are earning money for their family through driving a taxi or an Uber with self-driving cars. They're already out there. And I could go on and on about the jobs. Mid-level attorneys. They have AI to write briefs, and they don't need humans. Nearly 50 million entry-level jobs in the U.S. are at risk from AI automation, and unemployment among workers aged 20 to 30 in tech-exposed occupation has already risen by 3 percentage points since 2025. So it's here. It's not coming, it's here. Young workers are being told to upskill into careers that don't exist yet, while 77% of AI-related jobs require master's degrees. If we've eliminated the bottom rungs of the career ladder, who bears the responsibility for training the next generation of workers? Employers who benefit from AI productivity gains, educational institutions, the government, or the workers themselves? And can traditional retraining programs operate at the speed and scale this displacement demands? So Arthur, if you could comment on the entry level, we have so many millions of people. What are they going to do if they're replaced by robots and AI?
Yeah, there will be displacement. There's growing displacement. AI has not been fully deployed in the workspace. I think rather than job displacement, it is going to be more of skill displacement. So it's not so much jobs sort of knocked out of the ballpark with AI, but certain skills will become more adroitly used by AI than others. And so there will still be jobs, and I think part of the issue is that it's incumbent upon us to, again, share information about AI, how one can learn how to use AI well, in terms of the machine language models. How do you do prompts? How do you audit? These are all important things. And so there will also be additional jobs like auditing and some of the logs, because one of the things that AI does is it thinks a little bit. It's getting better at thinking, but it still needs the human element to perfect it. And so as good as AI is, it is not a natural learning module yet, where it'll talk back to you about certain things, but you still need the human element to drive AI and make it better. And the other thing that's important about AI, as it goes into other areas like hiring, making hiring decisions online, or making decisions when it comes to credit, it's important that we know how to make those decisions reviewable. So a lot of people are out of place with jobs now. They're going online, they're applying, and you get an automatic rejection from AI. You don't know what happened, who did it, and when. And so I think it's important that even us as individuals, that we challenge and say, hey, was this decision made based upon AI? And who do I talk to about this decision? I was doing something myself, and I was immediately denied with something. And then when I myself, so I'm not just telling you stuff to do because it sounds cute, it works. Because when I did it myself, they said, oh, we're sorry. We want to show you this fellowship opportunity. And I ultimately got it. But the issue is that so many people are just willing to take that automatic response without pushing back. And so some of the things that I'm working on now when I'm counseling clients and both individual clients or startups is how to do proper governance. And then two, what do you do when you've been aggrieved? Who is the responsible person? Where is your due process, right? Due process means you've got a notice and an opportunity to be heard. But if you don't know who hit you, you don't know who to appeal. And so that's why I mentioned the logs as going to accountability. That's going to be so important for jobs of the future. So I foreshadowed some other things. A lot to talk about. I'll pass the mic on.
Okay, same question? Okay, so I'm going to come at it from a different angle. And I'm going to share some experiences that I've had in talking with people in this industry. So I was on a conference call with a company out of India, and the thing that they shared with me was that they were talking about how they were producing students to fill these AI jobs. And so the CEO of this company said to me, he said, Janelle, he said, we have more than 1,000 companies in the U.S. who have outsourced their work to us. And he used Indeed as an example. And he said, so they monitor and they scale up the applications and who gets interviewed and all that for Indeed. And he said, so in the system, you may have 10,000 people apply for that job. He said, but the way the AI looks at it, it can whittle it down to the top 10 candidates because the AI is
Based on the AI, is
based
what it's looking
right
for.
algorithm, right? And so that's one instance. But then you mentioned the human element, okay? And that is so key because it all starts with you keying some information in. Okay, it's the quality of the prompt that you're keying in. And so if you back it up once, again, you said, so what skills are involved in learning how to prompt, right? And so you have higher order thinking skills, you have critical thinking skills, you have reasoning skills, you have logic skills. So all of that plays a role into how well and what that answer is going to get, that you're going to get. So those are points that I need to make. Also, when you look at where we are in this space, it also reminds me of something like the digital divide 30 years ago. I know you're familiar.
Yeah,
with
love
where
that.
right? So now we have the AI divide, okay, and it's really dependent on the skill and to what extent you can master those skills. Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, I'll keep my response a little brief, based on a couple of things. When I'm working with a customer or client, I'm focused on how do I provide a service, and so oftentimes I'm looking for a level of intelligence with, the modernization of an environment. So the talent that I look for is actually younger talent, and my focus is on individuals that can come in at a certain price point but already have familiarity with skills or with a tool, and they can apply those, and then the tool can help supplement or complement their ability as they're in this aggressive learning curve. So for me, it fascinates me that there's, a generation of young kids that have used technology since they were in elementary, and they now come in the workforce hungry, and they're motivated to implement these solutions and implement ways that they'll drive them across whatever platform we're working with. And so I see that as an opportunity when I'm out searching for ways that I can impact my services to a company. Sure.
Based on, I think, what your experience has impacted. And my kids are young enough that I don't have that experience, but are schools, do you find that the tech savvy kids or the AI savvy kids that you might be looking for and think that to foster them and they can kind of be productive in the tech AI world, are those skills coming from schools, or are schools too slow to respond to how fast technology and AI is changing? Because as I think this through, my fear is that, at the end of the day, schools teach you to think, and they prepare you for, a career, and so that you could be economically independent in the world. Are they able to do that in an AI world, or no? And what do we need to get to schools and be like, as soon as AI changes, you need to be teaching. You need to have an AI class. You can't start pumping out kids that don't know how to use AI.
I'm going to pass this down to you
Okay.
because you're on the education side, but I'll start with this. So are schools falling behind? Yes. Again, they're forced into a curriculum, and they're pushing that, and it's antiquated in many ways where it's not creating the workforce of the future. They got to figure out how to catch up with that. But there's a lot of supplemental programs. They're like an after schools program. Traditionally it would be for training, for mentoring, but now there's programs that are focused on incorporating tech. And so you have to understand that if a child gets a phone or a computer or a tablet at a very young age, they're building skills. So now you have to figure out how you're going to adopt that skill set into something that's useful, whatever their interest is. And so you have to push them in that direction because they may be toward coding or vibe coding or toward something else. But the idea is there's supplemental programs that are out there, oftentimes nonprofits that support these initiatives. So they raise up above, and then you start catching them in high school and into these programs.
So I should buy my kid a cell phone.
Start with the tablet.
Tell her to tell her. So, just to piggyback on what you were saying, when you think about the education as it is, so think about in order for teachers to teach AI, they have to be trained on AI. Okay, and so this is running parallel because the teacher they have so many other things that they're doing professional development on, and AI is just one of the many. Okay, so the alternative to that is you have like STEM institutions, you have like STEM programs and out of school STEM. I was looking at one last night where they were doing not only AI, but they were also doing the coding. They were doing it was another thing that slips my mind right now. But anyway, that's where you're going to find more so the training that is going to take place because it's going to be because those people are trained in those specific areas, and so it's supplemental programs that probably will provide the training.
Maybe before you get started,
Okay.
is there a difference between, are you noticing that rich school district, rich areas have the programs and the skills to teach and therefore pump out the people who are teaching AI how to reason and how to think and what prejudices and biases it will have versus poorer populations that are traditionally disadvantaged and we're cementing that racial
Oh, yes.
divide?
The overwhelmingly yes. The answer is yes. Because when you look at rural versus urban, when you look at the inner city schools and the disparities that is in those areas, definitely. So the quality of education overall is very different.
I just wanted to piggyback and say that I think that there's some variation in terms of where schools stand as it relates to student use of AI. Because, some schools feel like it's giving certain students an advantage over other students. And some feel like that it isn't the students' natural learning that they're evaluating or assessing. So there's a lot of discord as it relates to whether private schools or inner city schools or whatever the type of school it is agrees that this should be part of the main curriculum. So I just wanted to share that because my experience with my grandson is that there's a difference in terms of what his current school allows and supports versus what his former school is.
And to your point, I think the decision is still out whether AI is to be integrated into the curriculum and into the school. I mean, school administrators are still going back and forth with whether it is. And then where you find it is for those schools who are more progressive, okay, that will approve policy for it to be integrated. But then there's still a holdout for whether or not AI can be used in the schools.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you.
Can I ask another question along
Of course.
those lines of education? When you talk about skills shifting, how do we see that impacting the trades? So carpentry, plumbing, that kind of
Like HVAC and
HVAC.
So it's very interesting. The reason why there is a lag in the number of data centers that are being built is because of the lack of skilled workers. So you have a very unique challenge right now, which is you have a baby boomer population that's retiring. The ones that were entrepreneurs and had small businesses, their children didn't want to take over the plumbing, carpentering, electrician business. And they're trying to sell them now either to someone else in the community or to a VC-backed firm that wants to acquire a bunch of them and then establish, set pricing. But the challenge with data centers is simply the fact that you need these skilled workers to build them so they can connect to the grid. So you have these large swaths of land that are designated for 20 data centers and nothing has happened, and they've been on the books for years. So ideally, we got to figure out how to address that skill. So those talents are still going to be needed, even as we move into this more modern technology age. And I'll let others answer that.
A couple of things. I feel like I haven't been speaking that much. So a couple of things I would just offer. When you're talking about AI, it's a $37 billion industry that it's expected to make in 2025. It's a lot of money at stake here. When you talk about the data centers in large part in this country are populated in Black and brown communities. Internationally, the same situation. When I was last in Uganda in October, they were clamoring for data centers. I'm like, be careful what you're asking for. Uganda is rich in water, and they have a steady electric source, and likely the bigger companies will provide their own electric grid. But there's also environmental harms and concerns that are attendant to the building thereof. And the other thing we haven't really talked about, and the one thing I was going to ask you is, you said that you're looking for youth. That's great. But most of America at this point, unlike in Africa where the majority of the population is young, what about those middle-aged people or younger, maybe 30 to 50 or 30 to 60? They're kind of in a gulf. And so one of the things for people that are applying for jobs and such, you talked about, we both talked about how resumes are given automatic decisions, and we talked about ways you can allay some of those concerns and what you can do. I mean, the other thing I think, just to give yourself a leg up, make sure the resume is ATS optimized when you're applying in the first place, so that it'll have those buzzwords that AI would likely pick up for that job description. Just a practice tip. And the other thing I want to just briefly talk on, and I'll give the microphone back, is we also have not talked about sort of the existential AI crisis, right? So we in America are feeling it, and we see gloom or doom or optimism, depending on your perspective. But then there's also the international geopolitical view on AI, right? And so what I mean by that is, the Chinese is the existential boogeyman always, but in this particular case, President Xi has said by 2030, which is just now 4 years from now, that they are intending to beat the U.S. in the AI arms race, and in terms of quantum as well. I don't know what that means, but it's something to be concerned about. And certainly I think that's why each administration that's not necessarily partisan, but they go at it from different perspectives, Biden and most recently in Trump, why each of them are trying to move so vociferously to move forward with AI integration in the government and the greater society. I think one of the problems, briefly I'll say, with what the president is doing now is that there are no federal rules on AI writ large. There's no federal privacy rules. We're not here to talk about privacy, but they're important and they go hand in hand. And so what we're seeing is at the state level, Florida, Texas, New York, they are having very aggressive and very progressive AI approaches. So generally, as we know and from our civics class, the feds create the floor, and then the states can give more rights. But now with the feds not acting via agency or via the Congress, what we're finding is that the president, or the administration rather, is making AI rules through posturing through his executive order, which doesn't have the force of law, but it is in fact affecting what the federal norms will be, and we're finding those norms in the contracts between the vendors. That is now becoming the law. So de facto, we do have federal governance, and that's going to potentially be a problem when it comes, again, to durability, when it comes to reviewability, and again, our rights, because over time, the contract clauses will become standardized, but for the nonce, there's myriad different standards and myriad different things going on, so potentially could be a problem going forward. So
Actually, if I could, oh, okay, Mr. Cunningham.
So I'm gonna put my interns on the spot, because I told them I would, in this conversation about artificial intelligence and how it's impacting them and their job hunts, today. We've talked about it kind of in the past, so, Mr. McGlynn, I'll start with you in terms of how AI, how are you experiencing AI?
I mean, I don't know.
I also had a question for Palace. I guess I was wondering if you guys, if any of you or all of you, had advice. I'm graduating this year, and so I'm going into the job market. But I also think, as a young person, I'm concerned about my future in more ways than one. With job opportunities, for sure, but as you guys touched on, the dangers of AI with the environment and data centers. I guess I'm wondering how or what advice would you give for people or younger people and people younger than myself as well, high school students that are worried about their place in an AI world in the future?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good to start. Well, I'm happy to start. So I would encourage anyone that's, approaching graduation or even starting college and then looking for internships to just level up your skill sets as consciously and comfortably as you can. And what I mean by that is you have to understand that you're looking for an entry-level opportunity, and hopefully it comes with the salary of choice, but your ideal goal is to get a job, right? And so you want to balance that with understanding the technologies that are needed, the modernization that's happening for the industry you want to go in, and then also how you're going to interact. And then there's still a human element to this, is yes, you can take advantage of these platforms that help you find jobs, but you do know people, and you need to engage in networking while you're on campus, engage in talking with people, because there's still someone that has to make a decision. AI is not making the decision. So that person now has funneled it so that AI can provide them with supposedly the best options, and then they want to have a personal connection. So there's still these human skills that you have to apply, and you have to be more aggressive about that, which is ask the right questions. Just like you would prompt AI, ask the person the right question. If this job is available in a year, can I apply for it, and what should I be prepared to talk about? As you learn, as you get more intelligent, you're able to address the needs that that company has, and I'll pause with that for you.
Okay. So my best advice is to self-train. There are so many free programs available that you can go online and just train. I'm on one 16 hours just about every weekend. I'm just training on AI. I'm just skilling up. I'm just really getting into the deep of it. But let me just tell you, if you look at Anthropic, Anthropic has a course that you can get credit for, and it's an independent course. If you go to Microsoft Copilot, Microsoft Copilot has free courses. Gemini has free courses, and you can just sign up and you go at your own pace. But what you bring to the table is a skill set that is valued. Okay, so right now, like, it's the Wild Wild West, and so you just really do it for yourself. The onus is on you. But I did wanted to bring up, I know we're running out of time, but I did wanted to bring up something else. One of the things that people don't talk about in this space is, we talked about the digital divide, and I go back to you and the digital divide, but it's access. When we look at access to technology, look at the community. And that's something that's going through the BEAD program right now, that's going through the Department of Commerce, $42 billion that is available for funding. But if you don't have access to the technology, to the devices, to the internet, how are you going to skill up? How are you going to skill up? We need to address that. We need to get deep into that space and figure out what is it we can advise people to do in terms of of getting access, and what can we promote to get them better access to the internet? Because if you don't have access to the internet, you're pretty much out of the game anyway. I'm sorry.
I'll just add briefly. You're right. In this day and age, 2026, right, we're still talking about the digital divide, the Lifeline programs at the FCC, and so on. It's still very real, and that also is AI is going to affect the most critically affected communities, which is our communities, the black and brown communities, which is why these conversations are so important. And to your point about how do you compete in these marketplaces with AI, as I mentioned, AI is here. It's not all doom and gloom. I think in addition to getting training and learning how to use prompts effectively and getting familiar with AI, one of the critical things that's going to separate you in the job market, whether you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, is to have that self-individualization. Like, that's the unique thing, right? Because everyone's going to have a monotone AI blah, whatever that blah is. And so it's going to differentiate you in the marketplace is, in addition to doing the networking and all the things that you would do traditionally, is to make sure that you are different and you, what quintessentially is you. So knowing your 5-minute elevator pitch and why you versus why you, why now versus the other people, knowing that for you is going to differentiate you from all the other automated responses. So all the things we've been doing, but being more vociferous, and I do think, however, when you are applying online, there may not be an opportunity to use these what I call guerrilla war tactics. And so it's incumbent upon you to try to get the human resource, get a human. If you can get access to a human, you can be able to, interact with them and pull the normal levers that you're used to. But oftentimes, the first response, as I shared earlier in the beginning, is it could be an automated response. And so to the extent practicable, you have to do more research, look online, see who the hiring person is, and say, hey, I got this response back. I want to know, is this an AI automated response? And then ask them, what was wrong with my, can you give me any pointers on my application? And that'll be a telltale giveaway as whether or not it's an automated response. And if it's an automated AI response, then you say, I respectfully request that this be reviewed by a human. The result may still be the same, but you're exercising the modicum of rights that you have to make sure that you get a real person looking at your information.
If you ask those questions, I would hire.
Yeah, I want to give you practical stuff, news you can use rather than just, talk in the abstract. Because you wanted to know, you're entering the job market and you want to know, how do I do this? It's not going to be easy, but it can be done. It just takes a little more stick-to-itiveness and a little more grit.
Hi, I wanted to ask a question. I'm a little older than your interns. However, I use AI, and I tell you, I'm working on a doctorate. I was working up till midnight almost every night last year, and I didn't really use it. I started using it in addition to, but you have to check it. It allows you a higher level of thinking. AI is not just put in and put out. However, if you ask it a question and it gives you back an answer, you have to really go deeper. So the level of thinking is so much higher than you could imagine. Let me just share that with you, and it's amazing. My life is easier, less stressful. Even my niece told me I look so much younger, so I'm like, hey. I'm not saying AI is going to do that for you, but it does work. One question I have, though, is about the privacy piece. I don't know if you discussed that before I got here. I'm hearing that the information you're putting in is being retained and it's being used, and your personal information is staying in. So that's the caution that I have. And how do you use that effectively? How do you guard yourself against that, or if that's possible?
Yeah, can I just say two things, and I'll pass the mic quickly. To the piggyback on the point about using AI, and again, for the applications, I just want to put a circle on that thought. You can also use it when you're doing your applications or your thesis or your doctorate, whatever, to help you brainstorm. So rather than giving you a final output, you can have it provide you a myriad of ways to slice the apple or the onion, whatever the allegory is, and it can help you, as you said, refine your thinking. So rather than just taking it, blah, here's the answer, you put your value add into it, and you start working with the thing, putting yourself, as I said earlier, putting your individual self into it, and you can have an even better product. And then to the point of privacy, yes, yeah, you should be careful about putting stuff in your Chat GTPT or Gemini. And when I say careful, careful putting your cell phone, your social security number, all of those things. And then the other thing you can do when you're using those AI devices is that you can also tell it you don't want it shared in the training. And so you can click on it. I can't tell you where for each one, but there's a way to do it where you say, I don't want my, if I accidentally, and by the way, you should not be sharing any of that stuff generally as a rule, but should you do something, you say something that you don't want anyone to know about or whatever, click the privacy. You have that right and that option. And I'll just say another thing, and I'll pass the mic, because it raises other concerns. You may have all seen recently where the president's been threatening to drop Anthropic as one of the vendors for DoD because, here's the because, if you haven't followed it, that's scary. And the because is because Anthropic refused to surveil U.S. citizens, us. And so the politics behind that's very interesting. We could talk offline about it, but yeah, the stuff we're talking, it's real. This is the real stuff.
If you could pass it down to Biff, and while you do that, students, he was honest. You answered a question with a question, and we will get to you two about how you use AI and how you want to use AI. I'll give you a few minutes after lunch.
Sure. So, just a comment. So, I'm working with a company in San Francisco that's developing an AI platform that primarily looks at compliance and ethics for AI solutions. So, they presented a paper in Europe specifically to talk about the fact that the arms war now is who has an AI platform. Because if you do not have one that's homegrown, you are beholden to the country that provides you with an AI platform. So if you're using ChatGPT, and it's a US-based company, who controls all your data? The United States. If you're using DeepSeek or whomever is coming out of China, you're beholden to them because they control your data, they can siphon it, review it, and they can hold you hostage. So now when you look at alliances and allegiances, you start wondering, well, are they managing your data centers? Are they controlling all the important information? Can they shut off your systems? Can they look at your intelligence? So think about that, why AI is so important, right? So it is an arms war. The second thing around privacy, there was a case on February 10th, a judge in New York said there's no attorney-client privilege for information that's put into an AI platform. All right, so that's official now, right? How do you address that? There's two tricky things about that. AI platforms learn based on the content that's put in there. So you could say, we want to set up some perimeters, guardrails, that you can't use my information. The sneaky T's and C's is, well, my program learned on your information, so I'm not giving it back. Right. I will try not to use it, but it's part of my DNA now. So that's the tricky part, right? So you have to look at the policy side of how you set up the use of a solution and determine how you're going to educate your staff on what information can be put in an AI platform, and then how they're going to manage that. And so you may say, listen, anything that's financial, anything that's related to HR, anything that's related to intellectual property, you will not put in this platform unless it's a custom-built agent that understands how we will function as a company. All this general stuff you can do, but don't use proprietary information, and don't use your phone, right? And so once you establish those policies, then you've got best practices across the organization, and then you can start to figure out how you can best use AI, because it will keep everything that it consumes.
Oh, yeah, we're going to need to cancel lunch. We got a hot panel. So,
Okay.
Janelle, if you can make your comments brief, and then I have one more question for you all.
Very brief, and this is on a personal level. So, one of the things that I'm going to say to you is for you. I'm going to give you some homework, and that is, I would love for you to explore the Anthropic site. The Anthropic is about do no harm, and that's part of the reason that they're in conflict with DoD. Okay, it's do no harm, and but if you just look at their missions, their philosophy, and just go through it, you will be so. What do I want to say? You feel more comfortable with using Claude and some of the other Anthropics products. But the other thing I wanted to say, now this is more personal. So in one of my training classes, we got the prompt. We were told personally that the back door is always open. And you don't know what AI is doing in the background. Because AI could be ciphering off your material, your personal stuff, any information, right? And so we were given the prompt to say, one, inform me if you're getting any requests for any of my personal information, right? You're getting another prompt that says that do not share any of my personal information. Okay, so you have to protect yourself. And those are just, I mean, those are instructions. You're giving it to AI. And that's what you do with AI, is you give it instructions, right? And so use those prompts, but protect yourself. For all
Do that
all-
repeatedly because it'll forget the rules.
Thank you, exactly,
So,
exactly.
okay, Mr. Sidney, if you could.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had all these beautifully written questions and everything, but it was great that the audience participated, so I'd rather have that. I do want to finish, though, with, if you could real briefly, what do you see our government doing to help this problem where we're going to have millions of people that aren't skilled enough to work, and what do you think they should be doing about it? So what are they doing? And if the answer is nothing, I thought I heard you say nothing earlier, and what should they be doing?
Well, yes, I did share earlier that it's really a fight, if you will, between the states, the Congress, which is fairly quiet on these issues, and the administration. I think what ought to be happening is that the government, the federal government, should provide incentives, should provide working opportunities, ways to help people upscale, give tax credits to give the companies incentives to do that. I mean, everything's about money, as I shared at the very beginning. All of our talks over the next 3 days are going to be about power and authority, and so I think that those are ways that I think that can be done. There are several bills that have been introduced in the Congress that have been asking various agencies to study which jobs will be affected by AI, which jobs will be displaced by AI, and how AI is being used currently in the federal government. I mean, knowing some of the answers to that is helpful to demystify and clear some of the fog about AI. Again, there's not all gloom and doom. There's an upside to this as well. And I think certainly for Black and brown communities, when we've been through far worse. This has been claimed the fourth industrial revolution. These are now what they call new collar jobs. We have been through tough times, the Native, Black America, history after Reconstruction, the Great Depression. It was just regular times for us. We will survive this as well. And you're also seeing on the upside, there's a move to entrepreneurship writ large, not just for Black folks and brown folks, but people are realizing, hey, the economy's collapsing, even though the numbers are belying that. The job statistics are not as great as people are saying, even though the numbers belie that. And so people are moving to entrepreneurship because, time will go on, life will go on, there will be a tomorrow, and there really is nothing new under the sun. And as we shared before, even this whole notion of AI, which used to be called machine learning and automated decision-making, et cetera, in different iterations, it's not really new. So I don't want us to be alarmist, but I want us to be informed. And so to the point, again, that's been the through thread to these conversations, get information so that you know how to use this tool and have it work for you going forward. So I'll pass it on. I can circle back and talk more.
Okay, so a couple of things, more homework for you. I would like for you to, there's a study that was done for 25, and IBM did a study, and it is the National Economic Report, and it lists all of the jobs that are slated for either elimination or whatever. But anyway, go check that study out. The other thing that I want you to do is the White House has this is called the White House America's First AI Plan or something. That's the kind of like the name of it.
The AI Trump plan.
It is, okay, but it's a 28-page document, and I want you to be familiar with that and the elements of that so that you can, as we do more planning meetings, we can have that discussion. The other thing that I want to say is that Bill Gates and Anthropic and a couple of other his billionaire friends are starting a nonprofit program to help a low and middle income. So that's on the drawing board. They announced it about 7 months ago. Okay, so look into that as well because they're going to be doing grants
Would you, as part of the task force at our next meeting, can you talk about that? And Arthur, you mentioned the lists of jobs that are probably going to be going away.
Right.
If you wouldn't mind bringing that.
I will do that.
No, I was asking.
Oh.
So your part is good,
Oh,
but
okay,
Arthur,
sorry.
those lists would be good because I don't know all the jobs. I know a few. So, okay, sorry to interrupt. All
Anyway, I think that was it for me.
right, thank you.
So I'll try to keep it brief. So my lens on this as an entrepreneur is always going to be optimistic because I'm looking for a lane of where there's an opportunity to provide services or build a market, create an opportunity for someone to partner, collaborate, team. So I'm thinking about what is our challenge today with AI. Our challenge is there's a skill gap, right? Folks just don't understand the solution. So why are there so many programs? Because free programs, because they need to level up for what the career opportunities are going to be. I would have never thought 10 years ago that there would be such a job called prompt engineer, prompt analyst. But that's a real job, right? I never thought there would be someone that would be responsible for sitting in the passenger seat in a unmanned vehicle and just monitoring how the car responds. That used to be a driver's aid, right? But now that person will do this for an EV company or an autonomous driving company. Never thought there would be a drone pilot, and there would be a certification for that, so you could drop off packages or deliver bombs. So there are unique opportunities that are there. And so as far as what Arthur was talking about earlier, when you think about what the government's role is, when they lay guardrails for industries that are coming, and they've done this with policies like HIPAA, which one I was really involved in, they understand that this is important, so we're going to do this without any guardrails right now, and then we'll start to establish those compliances as we move forward, because they'll have to start to wrap guardrails around how these solutions can be used, because a certain percentage will use them nefariously, and others will use them for good. Anthropic's trying to use them for good. Don't forget, the people from Anthropic used to work at OpenAI. So they're in conflict for whatever competitive reason that they have, but they're both all multi-billionaires, but they're trying to figure out what lane they'll play in. So there will be opportunities for people to focus, and there will be job opportunities out there for people to pivot up. And then I wanted to go back to a brilliant question. It's like, what happens to that middle tier people? And she mentioned it. Continue to level or increase your skill level, because when a person leaves an organization, you lose that many years of intelligence. You can hire someone new at a lower salary, but that gap between educating them to get them to where they are, technology can't make that leap for them. You can bring them in to handle more intelligent tools where it supplements and say, well, you can now work on a defense solution because AI provides you with, a general language response at a 13-year-old reading level. But you lose a person for 15 years that had focused on how this company runs, how information moves, and how this company is going to be able to protect itself from a threat. And so that intelligence is still important. So when you level up your skill set, as you both mentioned, you're more valuable of maintaining your job or at least improving the opportunities. And then you have to get comfortable with the fact, and this is really for the younger individuals in the room, you will be managing people and bots. So you will have 10 employees, 5 will be agents, 5 will be humans. And you're going to evaluate all 10 of them. At the end of the year, you'll say, this agent isn't working well. we need to shore this thing up or add more power or do something else. But this employee hasn't increased their learning level and their knowledge level, so we need to make sure you get training. You need training, and bot A needs training. And both of you will be at risk of whether you won't be around and that employee won't be around. But you'll be managing bots and people. And you got to be respectful to them because HR is going to have a policy that they get treated well as well.
So no swearing at the bots. I'm already guilty.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
going to
I'm already.
happen.
So I know that there's probably more questions, and I'm really sorry about that. But if these three folks will be here if you want to find them in the hallway or in their seat. The one thing I will say about that I've heard is that people with people skills are going to become more valuable because there are certain business interactions where a human wants a human, and the people that are older, they work in that world where it's I want to shake your hand, and younger people may not like that, but it's going to be around for a couple more decades. So if you do anything tonight, like if you're going to the reception, go up and introduce yourself to somebody. You may not want to, you may be scared. And if you can't, that's fine. I'm not trying to force you, but that's what I would encourage a lot of people to do. So with that, we're going to come over now and take a picture. If everybody could hustle, and I'm going to move this, and then we'll take a picture, and then we'll eat some lunch.